Applies to orders over $35.
Follow San Diego's #1 sports station on X at 97.3 The Fan ST, and you'll always be in the know regarding all things San Diego sports.
That is awesome.
KWFN and KWFN HD1 San Diego.
Hey, it's Chris Ello. We talk Padres, but I like to steer the discussion in the direction of the Aztecs as well. Listen for yourself. Glenn and Chris, 2 to 6 p.m. weekdays on 97.3 The Fan.
And Odyssey Sports Station.
Hour on the Braden Surprenant Show, live on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Well, we got a special guest in studio with us today. Brett Rypien is going to be joining us the next couple of segments. He is a NFL quarterback. He's been around the league for a handful of years now. He had a great career at Boise State. Is from the Pacific Northwest and is now a member of the Minnesota Vikings. And he works out here in San Diego. His lovely wife, who is here to join us just to make sure he's saying all the right things, is from San Diego too. So that's kind of the connection. But Brett, thanks for coming in and been joining us for a couple of segments. What's going on?
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. You guys got a pretty sweet setup here, man.
So we were talking a little bit about the San Diego connection, and I want to just kind of establish that early, being on the #1 sports station in San Diego. So, you're from the Pacific Northwest, stayed up there, went to Boise State. But how did you find yourself down here in San Diego, working out at Fitness Quest, and now living here full time?
Yeah, well, thanks to my lovely wife over here, Laura. We obviously went to Boise State, grew up in Spokane, Washington, and then we met our freshman year at Boise, and she was a soccer player there. And then I remember coming down here for a spring break. I want to say it was in 2016, maybe 2017, and got to go work out at Fitness Quest for the first time with Charleston, who, shout out Charleston. He doesn't even work at Fitness Quest anymore, but then got to know, who Todd Durkin was a little bit. And then, we end up coming back after my first off season with the Denver Broncos in 2019. So that was 2020 off season. And just been working at Fitness Quest ever since. And we love it down here. We've bought a home now. So we have roots here. This is kind of our home base. So we love it.
Well, again, appreciate you coming in, and let's talk a little bit about your journey. I mean, we're going to get into the NFL stuff, and your line of work and job is fascinating, I think, to a lot of people, in particular, just a quarterback in the National Football League, and whether it's a starting spot or a backup. I mean, moving all over the country and doing all these different things, just to keep the career going and doing your passion. But let's talk about you, growing up in Spokane, Washington. I mean, that is a place that is, very difficult to live. What's it like being a kid in the, in Eastern Washington growing up? Obviously probably from not that big of an area, compared to your wife that grew up in San Diego, probably a lot of different upbringing up there in Spokane.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, Gonzaga was the talk of the town. That's all we had up in Spokane. Obviously we have the Seattle teams, but that's a 4.5 hour drive. And some cold winters too. I mean, I don't think people realize it. In Seattle, you get rain and stuff, and the winters are pretty mild, but you come over to the east side of the state and you get a lot of snow up there. And, you're hunkered down from November till really early March. I remember playing high school baseball up there and in some snow games, which was never ideal. But yeah, man, I mean, I think, it's funny working with a lot of high school quarterbacks down here, just through some connections I've made. And I always tell those guys, man, like, you have no idea how lucky you have it, to be outside 365 days a year and, have that opportunity and be able to take advantage of that.
What was your recruiting process like up there in Spokane? I mean, obviously I coach high school football, so everybody's is different. But at what point during your high school career did you think, I can keep playing at other levels? What was the recruitment process like in terms of offers you got, and ultimately your decision to, stay up in relatively the same area and go into Boise State, who by the time you were showing up had achieved a lot of great things as a football program?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I thought I was going to be a baseball player. Most of my high school career, I played club baseball. Ever since I was 12 years old. I really didn't start getting into football till probably my freshman year in high school. And, still thought going into my junior year that I was going to be a baseball player. And, ultimately I think I just found that I think I was getting more opportunities on the football side and started to fall in love with the game, a little bit more. I had both in-state offers with Washington State, Oregon State, Arizona State, and Boise is what it really came down to. And, I remember Chris Peterson was the original coach that recruited me at Boise, and he ended up going to UW. So I was able to meet the new staff. My last visit I took was to meet the new staff at Boise, and it was really kind of between Boise and UW. And right before I went and took a visit down to Boise, Jake Browning committed to Washington. And so that kind of rescinded my offer and kind of made my decision a lot easier. And had an unbelievable time at Boise, man. Like the culture there and, the people there, the city, and the program has obviously just been so special for so long. And it's cool to see them continue to do that.
Vikings quarterback Brett Rypien joining us in studio on the Braden Surprenant show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Obviously with the Mountain West ties to here in San Diego State. I mean, those were some of the years where the Aztecs had some pretty good seasons. But, your career at Boise State, you broke a lot of Kellen Moore's records. You went out there and, finished your career with 13,500 passing yards, 90 touchdowns. I always love like in-game kind of stories. Like what are some of your favorite moments playing at Boise State that you can remember, or big games in Boise or maybe on the road that you remember the most from your college days?
I think one that sticks out for sure was when we were playing at Colorado State 2017, and we were down, I want to say 28-6 at half. It might have even been 28-3. And, second half we come out with the first half. We were just horrible. I mean, we had turnovers, just missed throws, routes, miscommunication. It was just an absolute, gong show the entire first half. And then we get into halftime, and there was really like this calm sense of belief, that we were going to be able to make a comeback. And that was in Colorado State's new stadium. And they had actually I think they had just beaten us, like I want to say a year ago, but up until that point, there was 8 straight seasons they'd never beaten us in the Mountain West. And everybody thought like, okay, here's the time. And we come back out in the second half and we have just this crazy comeback. We force it to go to overtime with an onside kick, and then end up winning it in overtime. Leighton Vander Esch gets a forced fumble to end it there in overtime. And then after the game, I get a couple Venmo requests from people saying I had Colorado State like +6.5 or something like that. So those are always memorable.
I can't believe that. I mean, it's a little bit more prevalent now than back when you played, but that's kind of crazy. I mean, that's just kind of the crazy state of affairs of college athletics right now. And we'll dive more into other topics in the next segment. But what's your, with being a Mountain West guy and conference realignment, and obviously Boise State has always been one of the better programs from the group of 5. The way everything's kind of moving around and shaking out. I mean, what's your overall opinion on this conference realignment and really where everything stands, especially the connection here with San Diego State? But, you got the new Pac-12 starting with Boise and San Diego State. From a Boise State alumni perspective, do you think they're set up to continue? And what have you seen out of college football now as you have gotten years out of it watching from afar?
Yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting time and an interesting landscape. I think there's still some things that need to be addressed in terms of transfer rules, and how you're able to transfer so many times. I think there has to be some sanctions on, if you transfer more than once, the penalty should be more significant, in my opinion, just because, you're incentivizing guys just to basically sign 1-year contracts and, be able to leave. And you're seeing that now with like the Tennessee quarterback, that didn't show up for spring camp. I mean, that's a pro football type of thing to have happen. And then he ends up transferring. So it's just a wild time. I think the new Pac-12 will be great for schools like San Diego State and Boise. And, I think that they're going to continue to, gain more exposure. And obviously, I think those two schools specifically have been looking to reconference for a while. And, ultimately, who knows? It could turn into, where they have really just 4 major conferences. I don't know how far that is down the road where they get rid of, maybe the Pac-12 as well. And I know Washington State and Oregon State would probably, be a fan of that as well. But I don't know, man. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, I think over these next 5 to 10 years, but I do think that the realigning, especially for schools like Boise and San Diego State, will be good in the long run.
It's a little bit different, obviously, from when you played. I mean, you spent all 4 years at Boise State. Is that, if the rules were different, I mean, would you be part of that, transfer? I mean, how beneficial was it for you in your development to stay in the same place for 4 years in terms of, at least relating it back to current players, if you could give them some advice of, that asked you that are young quarterbacks going through now?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things that's helped me throughout my pro career is having to battle through some adversity. Like I did in my college career. I was going into my junior year. I had a great freshman season, had a, okay, bad end of the year, my sophomore year. And then going into my junior season, they bring in, a transfer quarterback from Kansas, and we're kind of splitting time to start the year. And that was a really tough time for me. And, it would have been easy, I think, like you say, nowadays, if after my sophomore year, I had 2 pretty solid seasons, I was first team All Mountain West, to be able to leave. But actually going through that adversity that I went through, at Boise, and having to battle out of, getting benched, for one game, and, kind of coming through that, I think has really helped me in my pro career. So it'll be interesting to see, how a lot of these guys deal with, the adversity that you face in the NFL, because, I mean, if you think it's bad in college, it's, 10 times fold as much in the NFL, what you're going to be, dealing with, the amount of pressure, the amount of media coverage, and it just the caliber of players, obviously, that you're facing every single day. You just have to be able to bring it. And I think that when you go through hard times, it helps you deal with that stuff for sure.
Vikings quarterback Brett Rypien in studio with us on the Braden Surprenant show here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. I got a draft question for you, and then we'll take a break and get back to it. But the draft's next week, and for you, you go through the whole draft, and probably thought you were going to get drafted. I mean, the numbers that you put up in college would suggest so, and you end up going the route of an undrafted free agent. You land in with the Denver Broncos. You put out the tweet, "I'm staying a Bronco for at least next year," which was kind of funny. But what was that process like for you? And going through that, and when you speak of adversity, obviously maybe a disappointment, but then going into another opportunity, talk to us a little bit about that experience for a lot of guys, because you see the 7 rounds on TV, and for the guys to get drafted, but there's a lot of players that make an NFL, make a career out of the NFL that don't get drafted like yourself.
Yeah, I would say, for the majority of guys, draft day is somewhat disappointing. I mean, I can even think of my good friend Drew Lock, who went to draft day in 2019 for the televised, and was in the back room in the green room, thinking he was going to go in the first round, and doesn't end up going until the 34th pick on day, or 34th pick, so second pick on day 2. And just hearing how his experience was just, horrible, having the cameras constantly on you. But yeah, for me and, for my whole family, draft day was tough. I mean, it was, I thought I was going to be the first quarterback ever from Boise State to be drafted. And, that was something that I had really worked for throughout my entire college career, knowing that had never happened. And it was hard for everybody, I think, that was involved with that moment. But like you said, it's just another step in the road. And, ultimately, I think when you get down to those later day 3, 6th, 7th round, it's actually sometimes an advantage, I think, to be an undrafted free agent, because you're able to kind of see a situation and where you want to go. And I felt like Denver was a great opportunity for me to kind of step in there and, at least get my foot in the door, be able to be a part of an organization on practice squad for 1 year, and ultimately ended up being a great decision. And I had a great time there in my 4 years.
I really want to know a little bit about like the mindset of of being a backup quarterback at such a high level and kind of understanding the business side of things as you go through your career. We're gonna talk about that when we come back. And I know you got some takes on some retired jerseys maybe in Colorado. We also got some takes on the San Diego Padres too, because first one to ask me about the Jackson Merrill contract after he signed the extension was Brett at the gym to get the details on it. So engaged baseball fan. We'll talk about your baseball love too. But Brett Rypien in studio with us, going to continue on during our next segment of the Braden Surprenant Show on 97.3 The Fan.
I'm Chelsea Messenger, helping you beat the books with the BetMGM Network. Bet of the day is taking Cade Cunningham to lead the next Pistons series in points. This is 2-1 over at BetMGM. Feels like a great bet to make, considering Cunningham is the go-to guy for the Pistons, and he's been great against the Knicks. Cunningham has 36 points in each of the last 2 games against New York. Let's take Cade Cunningham to lead the series in points at plus 200. Bet smarter and beat the books. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly.
You ever try fixing your car and realize you're missing that one part? Yeah, been there. That's why eBay's my go-to. They've got millions of parts, guaranteed to fit. I'm talking brake pads for when yours have seen one too many miles of stop and go. Oil filters, because you don't mess around with your engine care. Even got this cold air intake on my watch list. I might just go for it. To keep the ride cool and your DIY streak high. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things. People. Love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
San Diego, your spring upgrade starts now at Kearney Mesa Volkswagen, your local veteran-owned dealership on Convoy Street. It's the spring sale, and we're dropping prices with tariff-free savings on the Volkswagens you want right now. Cruise the coast or commute in comfort with the brand new 2025 Jetta Sport, just $249 a month. Or make your next road trip the best one yet in the 2025 Taos SE, just $259 a month. No tariff markups, no gimmicks, just real deals. With a team that brings military values, honesty, respect, and service to everything we do. These are limited time offers built for San Diego drivers who want quality, performance, and value. Whether you're heading to the beach, downtown, or just out for tacos, we've got your next VW waiting. Don't miss your chance to score spring savings before they're gone. Kearney Mesa Volkswagen, veteran owned, San Diego proud, and always local. For more details about these specials, go to KearneyMesaVolkswagen.com.
Here is your Game of the Week, presented by Hyundai. The baseball season is underway as we continue to see the teams separate themselves from the rest. Texas has had a resurgence, returning to form after winning it all in 2023. They will be tested in an early season series against Los Angeles. Will Texas be able to wrangle a couple of wins in the series? Don't let the urge to sing along to that catchy tune distract you from that truck drifting toward your lane or that lane-splitting biker creeping up beside you. Fortunately, every Hyundai offers available class-exclusive advanced safety features that can alert you to potential dangers around you, and Hyundai has over 130 IIHS top safety awards since 2006. Because Hyundai is always working to ensure the road doesn't get you, IIHS top safety awards include Top Safety Pick and Top Safety Pick Plus awards to Hyundai vehicles from 2006 to 2025.
Hey, it's Ben from 97.3 The Fan. I lost 40 pounds in 60 days with sdfatloss.com, and I love hearing these success stories.
I am a listener of 97.3 The Fan, and I heard last summer you and Chris Ello doing this program, and I thought, why can't I be that person? So I decided to give them a call.
So how much weight did you lose?
So in my first 60 days, I actually lost about 50 pounds. Since then, almost a year ago, I've actually dropped an additional 43, totaling 93 pounds.
That's so incredible. So how did you feel as the weight was coming off?
It felt amazing. It's one of those things where you just don't even believe it when it's happening. And what they advertise about up to a pound a day is true. I was losing a pound and a half a day consistently for the first 60 days.
Thank you, Manny, for sharing your great success story with sdfatloss.com. To learn the secret of losing up to 1 pound of unhealthy fat per day and start your own story, call sdfatloss.com at 858-665-3211 or go online to sdfatloss.com. That's sdfatloss.com.
Prices are going up everywhere. Tariffs may drive up costs across the country, but not at Legacy Box.
Why? Because we're proudly 100% American made. Every tape, film reel, and photo you send stays right here in the USA. digitized by skilled technicians who know your memories are priceless.
Introducing the Legacy Box All-American Sale. Just $9 per tape. Not $15, not $12, just $9.
We're the nation's #1 digitizer, trusted by over 1 million families because we've made it simple. Just fill your Legacy Box with old tapes, film reels, and photos. We'll digitize them by hand and return everything, plus digital copies on the cloud you can relive and share forever.
With Legacy Box, your memories are safe from tariffs and safe from time. Heat, humidity, and age are already destroying your family's history, so take advantage of our limited time $9 tape sale.
Visit legacybox.com/value to lock in savings today. That's legacybox.com/value. Legacy Box, American made, trusted by families.
Tower on 97 through the fans, brought to you by Robert Half. The Robert Half found that 67% of companies want to increase contract talent. That's why our recruiters' expertise and award-winning AI work quickly to find the skilled candidates you want. At Robert Half, we know talent. Visit roberthalf.com/talent today. Minnesota Vikings quarterback Brett Rypien joins us in studio. A lot of people in the chat that were just tuning in were like, why is he here? What's the San Diego connection? So we'll reiterate it. His wife is from San Diego, went to Westview and ended up playing soccer at Boise State at the same time that Brett was playing football at Boise State. And off air, she was talking. Her family's diehard Padre fans and big sports talk radio listeners, which we love to hear. You guys were at the game yesterday. How'd you enjoy the game yesterday?
It was great. Yeah. I mean, obviously another win. I mean, it's crazy. You know, like we were saying, we check, the standings every single day now. And it's like, you go to overall and there's the Padres at #1. Like it's been just an unbelievable start to the year for them. And I mean, really like pitching, defense, hitting has all been really good, but like you look at the pitching, I think that's got to be like maybe the biggest surprise so far, like with Darvish being out and how good the bullpen has been. And we actually got to talk about that too. I have a family connection.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that, but
I was told.
Yeah. So my second cousin is Alec Jacobs. So his grandma was my grandma's sister.
Oh, wow.
So there's a small world.
There's a small world connection.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys from Spokane down here in San Diego, right?
Yeah. So if I wasn't a Padre fan before, I'm for sure a Padre fan now.
Oh, man. That's awesome. I do want to, we're going to continue on with a couple other questions I had of just like the business that you're in, of being a quarterback in the National Football League. But I have to ask on the Padre baseball side of things, being a baseball guy that you are, I mean, when you're in the NFL locker room and you guys are, talking about everything under the sun, what's the, because I see in the Padres clubhouse, like on Sunday during the Masters, when we were doing media availability, we had to wait for the final hole and then the playoff hole because all the players were locked in on the Masters. How much sports talk do you guys do? And you got guys that are fans of other leagues, other teams. What's the shared sports fandom in the locker room in the NFL? Because you guys spend a lot of time with each other during the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's always random conversations going on, and I think the NBA is probably the most talked about in NFL locker rooms, and the Jordan LeBron debate. Who's in the top 5? Is Kobe Bryant, in that top 3 conversation? So we have those conversations all the time. What you realize is that like at the end of the day, like these guys are just big kids. And like we get to do what we dreamed about doing for a living. And, and you got to keep it light. I mean, especially I feel like, I don't know how a baseball locker room is, but when you're playing 162 games a year, that can probably wear on you. So when you do get free time, you don't want to think about baseball. You want to talk about some other things. And obviously sports is a big passion of everybody's. So, I mean, to anytime you can talk about, other sports and other guys and how they're doing, I think it's good.
Well, plus you got a San Diegan as a head coach up there. It's your second year with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. But is that your resident Padres fan up there to talk Padres baseball with Kevin, or he's locked in throughout the entire year?
Oh no, he is a massive Padres fan. So funny story. We've become good friends with Eric Grupner, Padres CEO, through some mutual friends. And last year during our bye week in Minnesota, it was Game 4 of the NLDS against the Dodgers. And Laura and I texted Eric, and we were like, "Hey, can we, come to the game?" Kind of last minute thing. And he was like, "Yeah, sure." So we go up there and see him in his box, and all of a sudden I walk in and Kevin's right there, like right in the box, and I had no idea he was going to be there. So I'm all of a sudden like, obviously I see this guy every day at work. I'm sure he's the last person I want to see walking into that box. So it was such a funny, like kind of awkward moment. Like, what are you doing here? And then, so yeah, he's a massive, massive Padre fan. Flew back for Game 4 of the NLDS, which that would have gone a little bit differently, but
it's all right. It happens. It happens. As you know, in sports, a lot of things don't go your way sometimes, but you've had a pretty, fun NFL career. I mean, you've had opportunities to start games. Your first ever NFL start was on Thursday Night Football. You guys got a victory too. I'm sure that was a fun experience for you, but and we'll talk about that. I want you to tell us about that day that you had, but also like, from a mental perspective, and you talked about, you guys are all big kids playing a game, but this is a business, this is work. You understand, there's a lot of things that move with your life and trying to, pursue your dream of being a quarterback in the NFL. And that's obviously very difficult. Having a family, it's difficult with a lot of different things. But how do you go about the business side of football? As a quarterback, especially for a guy in your position where you might have to start one week, or you might have to go in a game that you weren't expected to go in because of an injury, your preparation and stuff like that. So, what's the business side for you? How do you handle that? Because some of that could be obviously very, can turn your emotions in a different direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've been through, every situation you could possibly think of under the sun, from, starting out as a practice squad quarterback. And then my second year, was COVID, and I didn't make the team out of camp. And because we brought in a guy that they thought was going to be the backup, then by game 2, that was when I got my first start, and I was the backup for the rest of that year. So I've been a backup, I've been third string. And, I think the old cliche is you just control what you can control, right? But like that, at the end of the day, is so true in any professional sport. I mean, you got to just be process oriented and, have your routines that you do throughout a week. Like my routine is so dialed in now for an NFL week. But it's a lot. I mean, it's a 14-hour day. And as a backup, you're not getting to go out on Sunday and take all that preparation to the field. You're just kind of right there, ready, waiting, as you are as a bullpen pitcher. I'm sure that's very similar analogy there, but I mean, I think at the end of the day, you go about your routine. You make sure that, the old cliche of, don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So that's kind of the mentality that I take, and try to do that as best as I can.
Tell us about that your first NFL start, Thursday Night Football. Playing night games in the NFL is very rare. It's always usually an important deal. Ended up getting a victory, and take us through that. What kind of day that was for you? And at one point, did you sit back and be like, I just started and won an NFL football game?
Yeah, it was an emotional roller coaster for sure. I mean, it was during COVID, so obviously no fans there, but that was probably the loudest game I've ever been a part of, with the way that they were pumping in music while we were in the huddle. And there was actually there was some rules that the NFL had and some guidelines to make it a little bit easier to call plays, because they knew teams were going to try to do that. But they were definitely crossing the line that night in terms of, how loud they were playing the music. And it was I remember just being so hard to hear what was going on. And there was literally nobody in the stadium. And then I'm screaming plays in the huddle. And then obviously the game was very up and down. We ended up putting up 37 points, which was awesome. But I had a couple turnovers, that I wish, could have had back. And then, at the end of the game, there was 3 personal fouls in a row. We were doing the old roll out to the right and throw a foul ball, basically just chuck it out of bounds to run off some clock. And we were up 9 points. Like, we could have just taken a knee and, whatever, or punted it. And, we decided to do 3 of those in a row, and I got late hit on 3 of them in a row. So it was definitely a roller coaster, but I mean, a dream come true moment for sure, getting that opportunity and then going out there and getting a win.
I watched that quarterback show on Netflix, and the one that really stood out to me was the Kirk Cousins one, and he's just getting pulverized, and the hits look hellacious. But as a football coach, I mean, I always feel like it's relative to like the level of play you're at. I mean, just in the perspective of the NFL, obviously the speed is way faster, everything like that. But what is it like, with some of those? I mean, you're going against a gigantic. First of all, you're a gigantic human being, but you're going against gigantic human beings that are incredibly fast. What was that big transition for you between college and the NFL from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint?
Yeah, I think from a physical standpoint, I mean, all the hits, they hurt. I mean, but you realize that in the NFL, the pass rush is so good and so disciplined. I think that was the biggest thing I noticed right away from college to the NFL is like your pocket movement has to be so precise. Like, you can't have these big step ups because you're not going to really, most of the time, you're not going to have an area to really step up into. So you have to be very disciplined with how you operate in the pocket. And then obviously the athletes in the back end are really good, but I think the nice thing is, they're going to be in the right spot. A lot of times in college, you get guys that are busting their coverage or, whatever, and actually it can be advantageous for them because they end up, falling into a play or whatever. Like, what you see in the NFL is like what you're going to get. Where guys are going to be. The game is so structured and so disciplined that as a quarterback, like if you understand coverage and you understand, your concepts that you're running, it actually can make it a little bit easier. And I've heard that analogy used with some guys saying that it's actually a little bit easier to hit in the big leagues than it is in, AAA, because guys are going to be hitting their spots, whereas maybe like a guy in AA, he's going to be a little bit wilder, so you don't exactly know a lot of the time. So it's kind of that deal.
Well, it's funny, and we're with Vikings quarterback Brett Rypien here on the Braden Surprenant show. So I got a couple more things for you, and then we got to take our final break and say goodbye. And I know you're getting ready for to depart here, San Diego, to get ready for OTAs and all that fun stuff right around draft time. But there's in your work, you work out with Jordan Love at Fitness Quest, with the Packers. He had a nice fro the other day. It was looking nice. I'll let you save those comments for a different time. But working over there with Marcus and Todd, and I'm blanking on his name, but there was a pitcher that's now pitching down in Mexico, and he was getting ready for the season. And you were going to, as a former baseball guy, step in the box on a live kind of bullpen session.
Yep.
And I was texted from a mutual friend, like he said, over under Rip makes contact.
Yeah.
In the 5 at-bats. And I was like, hit or make contact? And he was like, oh, just make contact. And I was like, well, he's an athlete. I believe that you could have made contact in this particular situation. Not saying a hit. What was your take on that? We didn't end up doing this, but do you think you can make some contact?
Absolutely.
In that bat?
I would have made contact. I think that was a too long of a debate, in my opinion. And I respect. So Justin Courtney is the pitcher.
Yes. Okay.
He's down in the Mexico League right now. And obviously, yeah, I haven't played baseball in, 10 years or whatever, how long I've been out of high school, but I've taken some BP and, if he threw me a heater, like he was sitting anywhere from 92. I went and watched his bullpen. He was sitting anywhere from 92 to 94. And I'd faced that in high school. Like, if you gave me, because the argument was 10 at bats, could I make contact? Absolutely. I think I'm going to at least foul tip one. Like,
yeah, that's all you had to do. It's
exactly.
Not, you didn't need a double off the wall. You just needed to get a piece of it for sure. I was the only one in your camp, at least that I was told, but it's a shame that we didn't get to see that. Maybe next year. As we, say goodbye, kind of lay out for us the next couple of weeks. What's the process like? What's it, start gearing up. What does the draft look like for a guy like you? And obviously it's a business, so things could be moving around. But as of right now, it's the next couple of weeks leading into the summer for a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, so we head back to OTAs next week. So I don't know. It's so funny. Like I think a lot of people don't really understand how the NFL offseason works. So like our first 3 weeks of phase 1 of OTAs or offseason training activities, you're only in there from 8 to noon, and you're basically just doing meetings, and you're doing a lift, and then we'll go throw on our own without coaches. You can't have coaches out there. So the first really 3 weeks are just kind of time to get everybody back together. Play a lot of golf. I think that's what we do the most during that time, and kind of just start to build that rapport back up. Then you do 3 weeks of phase 2, which now you're getting coaches back out on the field and you're running some individual drills or whatever. And then the last 3 weeks you go to phase 3, which is your OTA practices. And that's really not a whole lot of 11 on 11, no pads. So it's mostly 7 on 7. You're doing maybe, some more individual drills, maybe a little bit of 11 on 11, and then you roll right into mini camp for 3 days, and then you get your 5 weeks off. So it's kind of a crazy time. I'll be flying back and forth from Minnesota to San Diego. I'll be out there Monday through Thursday, and then I'll fly back on the weekends. And, I think a lot of guys do that just to try to keep, their rhythm and maybe get the most out of where they're staying in the off season. And, so it's a great time, and it's a great time to build rapport with the guys for sure.
Well, Brett, appreciate it, man. We got to do this again. Obviously when you're in town, if not, phoners work too, all the way to Minnesota, but it's a pleasure, getting to know you a little bit more. I think a lot of the fans enjoyed that. So thanks again for coming in. It was had some fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Brett Rypien joining us in studio. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, dive back into some Padres news. Padres home field advantage. It's been a huge advantage for the Padres at Petco Park. We'll tell you just